The moment I saw my former best friend walk into that delivery room wearing a mommy at last sash, ready to claim a baby that would never be hers, I knew that karma had finally caught up with her betrayal. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Claire, and at 36, I thought I had figured out the puzzle of my life. I was married to a wonderful man, had built a successful career, and after years of waiting, we were finally ready to start our family. What I had not anticipated was that my body would have other plans entirely. The word infertility sounds clinical when doctors say it, but when it becomes your reality, it transforms into something much more devastating. It becomes sleepless nights spent researching treatment options. It becomes watching your bank account drain as you pour everything into hope. It becomes the crushing weight of disappointment every single month when your body reminds you that you have failed again. I had been through 3 rounds of failed treatments. 3 times, I had injected myself with hormones that made me feel like I was losing my mind. 3 times, I had endured the invasive procedures, the constant monitoring, the desperate hope that this time would be different. And 3 times, I had walked away empty-handed, my heart shattered into pieces that seemed impossible to reassemble. But our doctor had given us one last glimmer of hope. IVF was still an option. We had managed to create one perfect embryo, and this was our final chance to become parents. The appointment I had scheduled was crucial, one of the final steps before beginning the cycle that could change our lives forever. That morning, I woke up with a mixture of excitement and terror coursing through my veins. This was it. This was the appointment that would set everything in motion. I had prepared for weeks, followed every protocol, taken every supplement, and done everything humanly possible to give us the best chance at success. I arrived at the clinic 30 minutes early, as I always did. The familiar smell of antiseptic and hope filled the air as I approached the front desk. The receptionist, a kind woman named Sarah who had seen me through all my previous appointments, looked up with a confused expression. "I am sorry, Mrs. Johnson," she said, her voice filled with genuine concern. "But according to our records, you called yesterday to cancel your appointment. Someone else has taken your slot." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs, and for a moment, I could not speak. "That is impossible," I finally managed to say. "I never called to cancel. I have been waiting for this appointment for months." Sarah's face grew even more concerned as she pulled up my file on her computer. "The person who called knew all your information," she said quietly. "Your full name, your birthday, your medical record number. They said you were canceling due to a family emergency." I stood there, frozen, as the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Someone had deliberately sabotaged my appointment. Someone had stolen my slot, using my own personal information to do it. The next available opening was not for 6 weeks, which would completely derail our treatment timeline. "Can you tell me anything else about the call?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then said, "The caller claimed to be you, but now that I think about it, the voice sounded younger. And there was something about the way she spoke, like she was reading from a script." My blood ran cold. There was only one person who would have access to all my medical information. Only one person who would know the intimate details of my treatment schedule. Only one person who would be desperate enough to steal my appointment slot. Melissa. Melissa had been my best friend for over 2 years. We had met in a fertility support group, 2 broken women clinging to each other in the storm of infertility. We had shared everything. The painful hormone injections, the devastating miscarriages, the grief that seemed to swallow us whole, and the fragile hope that somehow, someday, we would both become mothers. We had been inseparable. We texted each other constantly, sharing every detail of our treatments, our fears, our dreams. When I had gotten pregnant and lost the baby at 12 weeks, Melissa had been the one to hold me as I sobbed. When she had her 3rd miscarriage, I had been the one to bring her soup and sit with her in silence when words were not enough. But something had changed after my 2nd miscarriage. Melissa had started acting differently. She had become distant, almost competitive. She would minimize my pain while amplifying her own. She would question my treatment decisions and suggest that maybe I was not trying hard enough. The friendship that had once been my lifeline had become toxic. The final straw had come when she had completely ghosted me after I had gotten pregnant again, and lost it at 8 weeks. One day we were texting about our next steps, and the next day, she had blocked my number and disappeared from my life entirely. I had been hurt and confused, but I had assumed she was dealing with her own pain and needed space. Now I realized the truth. She had not just ghosted me. She had been watching me, studying me, copying my every move. She had been planning this betrayal for months. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot for 3 hours that day, crying until I had no tears left. The weight of the betrayal felt crushing. Not only had I lost my appointment, but I had lost my trust in someone I had considered a sister. The realization that she had been planning this deception while I had been grieving my losses made the betrayal even more devastating. But as I sat there, something inside me began to shift. The devastation was slowly being replaced by something else, a cold, calculating anger. Melissa had made a terrible mistake. She had underestimated me, and she had no idea what I had been building during our year of silence. During that year when we had stopped talking, I had not just been wallowing in my grief. I had been creating something. After my second miscarriage, when the doctor had called my uterus inadequate and unreliable, I had decided to channel my pain into purpose. I had quietly started my own surrogacy agency. It had begun as a small side project, born out of my own frustration with the surrogacy industry. I had researched the process extensively during my own fertility journey, and I had been appalled by the lack of support and advocacy for intended parents. Too many agencies treated surrogacy like a business transaction, with little regard for the emotional complexity of the process. I had wanted to create something different. An agency that truly understood the pain of infertility, that would provide comprehensive support throughout the entire journey. I had hired vetted, compassionate women who wanted to help others become mothers. I had built relationships with the best reproductive endocrinologists, counselors, and legal experts. I had created a network of support that I wished I had had during my own darkest moments. The agency was small but growing. We had successfully matched 12 intended parents with surrogates, and 3 babies had already been born. It was incredibly fulfilling work, and it had given me a sense of purpose during a time when I had felt completely lost. But I had kept it quiet. I had not advertised widely, relying instead on word-of-mouth referrals and a simple website. I had wanted to build something authentic and sustainable, not just another fertility business looking to profit from people's desperation. Now, as I sat in that parking lot, I realized that my agency might be the key to getting justice for what Melissa had done to me. I drove home and immediately began making calls. I reached out to my contacts at other clinics, trying to piece together what Melissa was planning. It did not take long to figure out her strategy. She had managed to get an earlier appointment at my clinic, which meant she was moving forward with her own IVF cycle. But I knew from our previous conversations that she had been told she would need a surrogate due to complications from her previous pregnancies. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, an application came through my agency's website. The name was different. She was using her middle name and her maiden name, but I recognized the email address immediately. It was the same one she had used when we were friends, just with a slight variation. I called her, pretending to be one of my intake coordinators. The moment she answered, I knew it was her. Her voice was exactly the same, and the story she told me was almost word for word what I had once told her about my own fertility journey. She was desperate. She had 1 embryo, just like me. She had been through multiple miscarriages, just like me. She needed a surrogate, and she needed one quickly because she was getting older and time was running out. As I listened to her lie about her identity and steal my story, I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. She had no idea who she was talking to. She had no idea that she was placing her future in the hands of the woman she had betrayed so cruelly. I let the application go through. I assigned her one of my best surrogates, a woman named Jasmine who was in the process for all the right reasons. Jasmine was a mother of 2 who had always had easy pregnancies and wanted to help someone else experience the joy of parenthood. She was kind, reliable, and completely professional. The matching process went smoothly. Melissa, still using her false identity, was thrilled with Jasmine. They had their legal consultations, their psychological evaluations, and their medical screenings. Everything was proceeding exactly as it should. But I was watching everything. I was reviewing every document, monitoring every communication, and waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. The embryo transfer was successful. Jasmine became pregnant on the first try, something that filled me with a mixture of joy and bitter irony. After all my failed attempts, this stolen embryo had implanted immediately. Throughout the pregnancy, I watched from the shadows as Melissa played the role of the grateful intended mother. She sent Jasmine flowers, attended every appointment, and documented her journey on social media. She had created an entire narrative about her fertility struggles, never mentioning that she had stolen someone else's appointment to get there. But I noticed something else during this time. Melissa was not just lying about her identity. She was fabricating other details about her life, her relationship, and her financial situation. She had provided false information on multiple forms, and she had even lied about her employment status to qualify for certain services. This was not just about stealing my appointment anymore. This was about fraud. This was about someone who was willing to lie and cheat to get what she wanted, with no regard for the consequences. As Jasmine's pregnancy progressed, I began preparing for the moment when the truth would be revealed. I consulted with my legal team, reviewed all the contracts, and made sure that everything was documented properly. I wanted to be absolutely certain that when the time came, I would have every advantage. The baby was born on a Tuesday morning in March. Jasmine had a beautiful, uncomplicated delivery, and the baby girl was healthy and perfect. I was there, of course, as I always was for my agency's births. It was one of the most rewarding parts of my job, witnessing the moment when dreams became reality. But this time was different. This time, I was not just there as the agency owner. I was there as the woman who had been wronged, finally getting the justice she deserved. Melissa arrived at the hospital 2 hours after the birth, surrounded by what looked like a small entourage. She had brought a photographer, a videographer, and several friends who were clearly there to document her big moment. She was wearing a sash that read "Mommy at Last," and carrying a bouquet of pink balloons. The scene was so over the top that I almost felt embarrassed for her. This was supposed to be a private, intimate moment between a new mother and her child. Instead, she had turned it into a social media spectacle. But her celebration was short-lived. When she walked into the hospital room, she saw me sitting in the chair next to Jasmine's bed. I was holding the baby, smiling calmly. Next to me, Jasmine was holding the contract, also smiling. The color drained from Melissa's face. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. The photographer continued taking pictures, oblivious to the drama unfolding in front of him. "Hello, Melissa," I said calmly. "Or should I say Jennifer Matthews? That is the name you used on your application, is it not?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Behind her, her friends were looking confused, clearly sensing that something was wrong but not understanding what. "I think we need to have a conversation," I continued. "Perhaps somewhere more private?" We moved to a small conference room down the hall. Melissa's entourage remained in the hallway, whispering among themselves. I could see the panic in her eyes as the reality of her situation began to sink in. "How did you?" She began, but I cut her off. "How did I what? How did I figure out that you stole my appointment? How did I discover that you lied on your application? How did I realize that you committed medical fraud by impersonating me?" I placed a folder on the table between us. It contained copies of all the documentation from her case, including the recorded phone calls from her application process, and the evidence of her false identity. "You see, Melissa, what you did not know when you decided to betray me is that during our year of silence, I built something. I built a surrogacy agency. The same agency that you applied to under false pretenses." Her face went completely white. "Claire, I can explain." "No," I said firmly. "You cannot explain. You cannot explain why you stole my medical information to cancel my appointment. You cannot explain why you lied about your identity on your application. You cannot explain why you falsified your employment information, your financial statements, and your medical history." I opened the folder and began laying out the evidence. "You violated multiple laws, Melissa. Medical impersonation is a felony. Fraud is a felony. Identity theft is a felony. You have committed enough crimes to put you in prison for years. She was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. Please, Claire. I was desperate. I did not know what else to do. I needed this baby. You needed this baby? I repeated. You needed to steal from me? You needed to lie and cheat and commit fraud? You needed to destroy our friendship and betray my trust. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. Well, here is what you actually need, Melissa. You need to understand that actions have consequences. You need to learn that you cannot treat people like obstacles to be removed when they stand between you and what you want. I pulled out the final document, the surrogacy contract that she had signed. According to this contract, which you signed under false pretenses, you are not eligible to receive custody of this baby. You lied about your identity, you provided false information, and you violated the ethical standards that govern surrogacy agreements. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. You cannot do this. That is my baby. My embryo. My egg. Your embryo that you created with a stolen appointment slot. I reminded her. Your egg that you were only able to retrieve because you committed fraud. Your baby that you are only able to claim because you built your entire case on lies. I stood up, gathering the documents. But I am not completely heartless, Melissa. I am going to give you a choice. You can walk away from this situation quietly, and I will not press charges. I will not report you to the medical board. I will not notify the police. And I will not make sure that the entire fertility community knows exactly what you have done. She looked up at me with desperate hope. What do you want? I want you to disappear. I want you to stop harassing me. Stop stalking my social media. Stop trying to interfere with my life. I want you to get the help you clearly need and leave me alone. But what about the baby? She whispered. I paused at the door. The baby will be loved. The baby will be cared for. The baby will grow up in a home where honesty and integrity matter. The baby will be fine. And with that, I walked out of the room. Melissa left the hospital that day without the baby. She did not return my calls. She did not contact my legal team. And she did not attempt to fight the decision. She simply vanished, just as she had vanished from my life a year earlier. But this time, I was not left empty-handed. I did end up adopting that baby. Through my own agency, working with Jasmine, who was more than willing to help me become a mother after learning about what had happened. The legal process was complicated, but we worked through it together. I named her Hope, because that is exactly what she gave me. After years of loss and heartbreak, after the betrayal of someone I had trusted completely, this little girl became the symbol of everything good that could come from the darkest moments. She was not mine by blood, but she was mine by love. She was mine by choice, by commitment, by the fierce determination to give her the best life possible. She was mine because I had fought for her, not through lies and deception, but through honesty and integrity. Jasmine became not just Hope's birth mother, but one of my closest friends. She understood the complex emotions surrounding surrogacy in a way that few people could. She had given me the greatest gift imaginable, and she had done it with such grace and compassion that I would be forever grateful. My agency continued to grow after Hope's birth. Word spread about our success, and we began getting referrals from all over the country. We helped dozens of families achieve their dreams of parenthood, and every success felt like a victory over the darkness that had once consumed my life. 6 months after Hope was born, my agency was featured in a major parenting magazine. The article told the story of how I had built the agency from my own experience with infertility, and it highlighted the compassionate approach that set us apart from other organizations. The response was overwhelming. We received hundreds of emails from intended parents and potential surrogates. We had to hire additional staff to handle the increased demand. It was the kind of success that I had never imagined possible. But success also brought attention from unexpected places. The day after the article was published, I noticed a comment on our agency's Facebook page. It was from an account with a generic name and no profile picture, but the tone was unmistakably familiar. "This woman is a fraud," the comment read. "She steals babies from their rightful parents and claims to be helping people. Do not trust her. She is not what she seems." I knew immediately who had written it. The phrasing, the accusations, the barely contained rage. It was all classic Melissa. She had not disappeared after all. She had been watching, waiting, looking for an opportunity to strike back. More comments appeared over the next few days, all from different fake accounts but all with the same message. I was a fraud, a baby thief, a woman who could not be trusted. The comments were designed to damage my reputation and destroy the business I had built. But Melissa had made a critical error. She had underestimated the loyalty of the families I had helped. Within hours of the first negative comment, dozens of positive responses began appearing. Former clients shared their stories, praised my professionalism, and defended my character. They created a wall of support that completely overwhelmed Melissa's attempts at sabotage. One comment in particular stood out. It was from a woman named Sarah, whose twins had been born through my agency the previous year. "Claire Johnson saved my family," she wrote. "When other agencies treated us like dollar signs, she treated us like human beings. She was there for every appointment, every milestone, every moment of joy and every moment of fear. She gave us the greatest gift imaginable, our children. Anyone who questions her integrity has never experienced her compassion." The comment received hundreds of likes and shares. It was shared in fertility support groups, parenting forums, and surrogacy communities. Within days, it had reached thousands of people, all of whom were learning about my agency and the work we were doing. Melissa's attempt to destroy my reputation had backfired spectacularly. Instead of damaging my business, she had inadvertently created the most effective marketing campaign I could have imagined. New clients were contacting us specifically because they had heard about the loyalty of our previous clients. But more importantly, the response showed me something I had not fully understood before. The families I had helped were not just clients. They were a community. They were people who had been through the same struggles I had faced, who understood the pain of infertility and the joy of finally becoming parents. They were willing to defend not just me, but the entire network of support that we had built together. As I watched the positive comments continue to pour in, I realized that Melissa had given me one final gift. She had shown me the true strength of what I had created. She had proven that my agency was not just a business, it was a movement. A community of people who refused to let infertility define them, who chose love over bitterness, hope over despair. Hope was now 2 years old, a bright, curious toddler who filled every day with laughter and wonder. She had no idea about the circumstances of her birth, about the betrayal that had led to her existence, about the complex emotions that surrounded her arrival. To her, I was simply mommy, and that was the most beautiful thing in the world. Sometimes, when I watched her play in the garden or listened to her babbling to her stuffed animals, I thought about the path that had led us to each other. If Melissa had not stolen my appointment, if she had not betrayed my trust, if she had not set in motion the chain of events that brought hope into my life, would I have found my way to this moment? It was a question I could not answer, and ultimately, it did not matter. What mattered was that we were here, together, building a life filled with love and possibility. What mattered was that I had transformed my pain into purpose, my loss into gain, my betrayal into blessing. The fertility journey that had once seemed like nothing but heartbreak had become the foundation for everything good in my life. My agency continued to grow, helping more families each year. Hope continued to thrive, bringing joy to everyone who met her. And I continued to heal, finding peace in the knowledge that I had chosen forgiveness over revenge, love over hate. But I would be lying if I said that there were not moments when I thought about Melissa, wondered where she was and what she was doing. I hoped that she had found her own path to healing, that she had learned from her mistakes and found a way to build a life based on honesty and integrity. I hoped that she had found peace. But I also knew that her peace was not my responsibility. I had given her a choice, and she had made her decision. The consequences of that decision were hers to live with, just as the consequences of my choices were mine to embrace. And what beautiful consequences they had been. My agency had helped bring over 50 babies into the world. 50 families had been completed because of the work we were doing. 50 dreams had become reality because we had chosen to turn our pain into purpose. Hope was not the only child who had come into my life through the agency. Several of our clients had become close friends, and their children had become part of our extended family. Birthday parties, holidays, and milestones were celebrated together. We had created a community of love that extended far beyond the original business relationship. On Hope's third birthday, as I watched her blow out the candles on her cake surrounded by the children and families who had become our chosen family, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not just for Hope, not just for the success of the agency, but for the entire journey that had brought us to this moment. The betrayal that had once felt like the end of the world had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. The appointment that had been stolen had led to the life I was meant to live. The friend who had become an enemy had inadvertently become the catalyst for my greatest joy. I had learned that karma was not about revenge or punishment. It was about balance, about the universe finding a way to make things right. Melissa had taken something from me, but in the end, she had given me something far more valuable in return. She had given me hope. She had given me purpose. She had given me the chance to help others find their own paths to parenthood. She had given me the opportunity to build something meaningful from the ashes of my broken dreams. And for that, in a strange way, I was grateful. As I tucked Hope into bed that night, listening to her recount the highlights of her birthday party in her sweet, sleepy voice, I realized that this was the ending I had never dared to imagine. Not just a happy ending, but a meaningful one. Not just a resolution, but a transformation. The woman who had once sat in a clinic parking lot, crying over a stolen appointment, had become someone entirely different. She had become a mother, a business owner, a leader in her community. She had become someone who turned obstacles into opportunities, who chose love over bitterness, who found strength in vulnerability. And the little girl who had been born from deception had become the greatest truth in my life. She had shown me that families are not just created by blood or genetics, but by love, commitment, and the daily choice to show up for each other no matter what. This was not the story I had planned to tell, but it was the story I was meant to live. And it was beautiful. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in our darkest moments we can find light, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories about resilience, hope, and the unexpected ways life can surprise us. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful journeys of transformation and healing. Thank you for being part of our community.